Om Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Deva Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakshat Parabrahman, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Welcome everyone to this lecture about understanding the role of the Guru. The prayer that I just chanted is a traditional Guru prayer, a Vedic prayer. And this one, we talk about the Guru as Lord Brahma, the Creator, Lord Vishnu, the Sustainer of the universe, and Lord Shiva, the Lord of all yogis, and the Destroyer of all delusion. We also talk about the Guru as everywhere in the divine Brahman, and I prostrate or bow to the Guru. So a very beautiful prayer. In today's lecture, we're going to talk about the role of the Guru. We're going to talk about and try to understand what it means to have a Guru. Why do you need one anyway? What's all the fuss about? We'll give some examples about Gurus of today's age and in recent times that you can kind of go learn about. And then we'll also speak a little bit about some of the controversial aspects of having a Guru. So I hope you'll enjoy the lecture. It is said in the teachings of India that there are three blessings in life, three great blessings. The first one is to have a human birth. So for all of us, we take maybe for granted our life, but to actually incarnate as a human being is something very, very precious. More so than anything else in the animal kingdom. We have the ability for reason, we have the ability to evolve, to grow, and to reconnect with the divine. So this is the great blessing. The second of the three blessings is to have a desire to know God, to have a desire to want to reach these high states within yoga and other systems as well, where we feel oneness with God, oneness with Spirit. And just that want to have that in your life is truly a blessing. So if you're watching this, you've already got two of them down, I think. Third one, the third blessing and the greatest blessing of all life is to find a true Guru, to find your Guru. So think about that for a moment. If we are to achieve these high states of consciousness, we need to have someone that's already realized these high states, that already knows God. And we need to have someone to show us the way, just like anything else in life. So it's, in a way, it's like a natural law. So from this place of the Guru, we've got to think about what Guru actually means. So the word Guru is used a lot in our society today, and it's kind of used off the cuff. We say we have a mindfulness guru, we say we have a fitness guru, we have a cooking guru. This term is used a lot, and it's quite confusing for people. Sometimes people even refer to the yoga teacher as a guru, and we have to be careful of this also. Traditionally, the word guru was used in two contexts. The first was a teacher, but the teacher was someone very revered in this way. So you might have a sitar guru, for example, someone who has mastered the practice, someone who is highly proficient and can teach you the ways of doing that. So this could be a guru in this respect. However, that's still not what we mean here. A guru who is what we call a sat guru, S-A-T guru, means a true guru. This is someone who has reached this high state of consciousness. They've gone into samadhi, the state of oneness, and they're able to have this divine contact. Okay? So this is someone extremely rare. There are only a handful of people on the planet at any one time who can be a guru. So don't despair. The good news is that they are often not so much looking for disciples, but they're open to receiving disciples. And we're going to talk more in detail about what that means. So the word guru is used a lot in today's society. However, like several Sanskrit words, like mantra, even yoga to some extent, the word is sometimes used incorrectly, or a little bit too casually and off the cuff. So the word guru can be used for things like my guitar guru, or I'm my cooking guru. There's all different ways that we can say this, and this person's my guru. Even sometimes yoga teacher is referred to as a guru. However, this is actually misleading in some ways, and potentially, especially for yoga teachers, this can give someone an inflated ego or a higher sense of where they are, and it's dicey territory to be walking in. Okay, so the word guru is used in two purposes traditionally. So in India, if someone had a teacher who was highly respected and a master of their trade, then that would be their guru. So you could have a sitar guru, for example. And the sitar guru has dedicated much of their life to these practices and can teach any person that comes to them. And this is one way that it's used in the word. As in many Sanskrit words, there are multiple uses. But the next one, the most important, is guru with a capital G, you might say. And we call it a sat guru, a true guru. And the sat guru is someone who has reached this high state of consciousness. They have already been to the mountaintop, so to speak. They've had God contact, and they're able then to speak from this high place. So when we speak in the context for the rest of this lecture, this is what I'm talking about. The other references to guru in the modern society are in a way either a lesser definition or even not correct at all. Okay, so this is something to think about. Always a guru with a capital G. What does it literally mean? The word guru actually is a reference as to overcoming or dispelling darkness. Okay, so the dispeller of darkness is the guru. Now this darkness is something subtle. You've all heard of a term to be enlightened. You've all heard of it terms in religion. They talk about let there be light. There's references to light in the Bible, in Yoga Sutras and Gita and all these teachings. So this light is the light of the divine, the light of spirit. And the darkness is when we shut ourselves off from that. Okay? So when we're in a place of delusion, we're not have any spiritual reference, we're kind of stuck in the mind. And life can be hard. So the dispeller of darkness, it's not just metaphorical, it is a literal thing, but a highly subtle thing. So that's the correct definition of the word guru. So when you meet a guru for the first time, there's a few things I want you to know. First of all, you are, in theory at least, sitting in front of an enlightened being, okay? Someone of a high state of consciousness, a holy person, equivalent to a saint in the Christian tradition. So this saint or this high person is someone to be revered, treated with respect in this way. Always we greet them with the reverent namaste or a deep bow like this. The guru also will know, yes, the teachings, but that's not really what we're after here. It's not just a learned person who understands text and can translate things. That's important for sure, but that's only a small part of what they do. You've got to begin to see the guru as an instrument of a divine, as an incarnation of divine consciousness. Okay, so that's something quite significant. So this instrument of divine consciousness then has deep, deep intuition and is going to know you completely, better than you know yourself. Okay, so you can think about that. If someone knows you better than you know yourself, then in one hand, they maybe have a right to tell you what you need to do. On the other hand, there's always a risk of, is this right, what they're saying, and do I agree with it, and do I give them that liberty? Okay, so this is where we get into the territory of ethics around this. But for now, we assume we're sitting in front of a true guru, an enlightened person, someone with deep knowledge and intuition. So they're going to know your soul. They're going to know exactly where you are on your stage of evolution. So in the yoga tradition, of the Eastern tradition of the Vedas, they talk about reincarnating over and over and over again, many, many lifetimes. And we hope that spiritually we do grow. However, the reality is it's kind of an up and down as we go through lifetime after lifetime. Okay? But they're going to know where you are on that grand scheme of things. They're going to know your karma. Okay? They're going to be able to see your karma and know what's manifesting in this lifetime. So the karma is the energy that's put in motion from the previous actions that you've taken. Okay? So that karma is in motion. So much of it, so like a bank withdrawal, you might say, so much of it comes out in this lifetime. And the guru is going to know that. They're going to be able to help you with your karma and even guide you as to things that are coming. It's quite strange. If you read the autobiography of a yogi, often they would say things like, next week on April or May 1st, you're going to be sick for 3 days, something like this. Okay? So you're sick for 3 days, so somehow they know this is coming. They're able to see into the future in many ways. They're able to see your whole life. And interestingly enough, for the great masters, they're able then, in some ways, to mitigate the karma. Okay? It's a one that's maybe difficult to swallow, but they're able to mitigate the karma, and there's lots of examples of that in Autobiography of a Yogi and other books that you could read about this stuff. Okay? So this is another aspect of the guru. Now this person who has divine consciousness, who's able to be at one with all there is in a very high state, is somebody who has tremendous power and tremendous life force or prana. Okay? So think of that person sitting there as somebody who's almost like a generator, who's generating loads and loads of energy. In that way, you're going to feel that when you sit next to them. There's something very, very powerful about it. So that guru then has a lot of energy, and the guru becomes magnetic. So that magnetic energy is a positive magnetic energy, and now we're like walking magnetic fields. We have a positive, negative pole within us, but we're not really magnetized. We're just all over the place. I mean, generally speaking, I speak for myself maybe. In this way, the guru can magnetize us positively. To give you an analogy that teachers of my own have used that I find very useful, if you had a bar magnet and the molecules in there were all different directions, all over the place, how do you magnetize it? You put it next to a bar of steel that's already magnetized, and in doing so, you magnetize the other. This is the basic principle of Shakti, this creative force of which the guru comes, and through your practice, your devotion, all your work, and the guru's grace, you can then become positive. And you need, or we need, I need it too, we all need that boost of energy to reach these high states of consciousness. Okay? So the role is energetic, the role is spiritual because it's like you're speaking to God. This is the level of reverence here. And you're also, someone's able to look into your soul, to your karma, to your evolution. Okay? So this guru is something to be highly revered. I have a little quote here from the Upanishad. Consider the guru your God. That's what it says. That's it from the Upanishads. Consider the guru your God. So the guru is like a ray of light shining from that divine light to that being. And that light becomes your beacon. If you're in darkness and you're lost in the woods, whatever it might be, and you can't find your way out, that light shines in like a spotlight. This is the guru. You go to that ray of light, and that becomes your spiritual path. So each guru is the face of a spiritual path. So you follow their teachings, you have a path, you have their grace, the karma can work out in different ways, and you have someone there in a teacher role as well. All of that works together. So, as you can see, this is something significant and extremely important for a spiritual seeker. So let's move a little deeper. So the question arises, why do I need a guru? What's the whole point of it? And many people get confused in this point. One of the things that often pops up with Westerners today is that they think they can reach these end goals of yoga, of the spiritual quest, by themselves, or through reading books or talking to other seekers around the way. And this is said to be, dare I say, a delusion, okay? No easy way to say it. This is a delusion. And we trick ourselves into thinking that we can do this, okay? So I want to emphasize, if you want to become a pilot, then you've got to spend time with somebody who's actually flown a plane. You know, this is the same reference and metaphor for a guru. If we want to reach God, we need to learn and have the transmission from someone who already knows God. Now I mentioned the word transmission. Transmission is key here. We talked about the energy, the Shakti, from one to the other. So the transmission happens from the guru to a disciple, or we call the devotee sometimes, a devoted person, and the devotee then has that ability then through their own will to reach these high states. And the Guru's grace, and grace is you might think of it as a positive flow of karma, flow of grace comes to the devotee and takes them upwards. So they often say, the Guru is reaching down their hand and the devotee reaches up. You have to really strive towards it, but you need that person to take you there. So there's a flow of positive karma, a tremendous flow of energy to make these things happen. So it's important to just make that clear. So if anyone says, or you even think to yourself, I can do this by myself, then I don't know of anybody who has. Okay? There are a handful of beings who are already born, who are enlightened or liberated while living. There's a term in Sanskrit, Jivan Mukta. So the Jivan Mukta is already liberated and born in the body. This is very, very rare. And those people are instantly enlightened even as children. So this is something that can't just happen to all of the rest of us, okay? One quote I have from Swami Kriyananda, who I follow his teachings a lot, and someone asked him, do I need a guru? And this is a man who dedicated his life to following his guru, who was Paramahansa Yogananda. And he wrote extensively on guru and everything else, talked about it extensively. When he was asked the question, he said, no, you don't need a guru. And a lot of people were shocked for a moment. He said, you don't need one if you don't want to find God. Okay? If you want to do this, if you want to reach these end goals, eventually at some point you'll need one. Now, if this isn't your cup of tea, don't despair. The very fact that you're on the path and have a desire and are striving to better yourself is very good. You are evolving faster than normal evolution for a human being. However, you can quicken this evolution. Right now we're walking towards the end goal. However, we can get in the car or even the airplane and get to the end destination. So really think of this as something as a great, great blessing and not onerous on yourself. Okay? Now the big concern here is, am I giving up my personal freedom? This person who I hardly know seems very holy and very loving, but they're telling me to do these things. And this is a big concern of people. And obviously, in a highly independent Western society, it's not as culturally normal, you might say, to just give up all that you think and go follow this person. Okay? So we're going to talk about this in depth a little bit more. I want to have a longer quote here. I'm going to read from a quote from Yogananda. Without divine grace, through the Guru as an instrument of that grace, there is no way exists for man to escape delusion. The human personality is like a dense forest, behind which lies a beautiful expanse of land that the divine has promised you. To reach it, you must somehow get out of the forest and not waste time exploring its countless lanes. People have no idea how to get out of their mental forest. Every path they attempt ends in confusion of dense undergrowth, or leads them back where they first started out. In time they realize they are lost. Then if someone comes and says, I know this forest well, let me show you the way through it. Will you listen to them freely but obediently? Experience is what counts. Okay? So if we reflect on that for a moment, we're in this place, we're living our life, but for many people they can never find true lasting happiness. True inner joy is something great, much, much greater than even just happiness. And we're stuck in ups and downs in the duality of life. Some things go well, some things don't, we're happy, we're sad, and this goes on and on and on. And we never seem to really get anywhere. And it's true, we can make life changes and we can be overall happier, but there's still all these problems. We then have this trick of the ego. So the ego is your sense of identity, Stephen and his personality and this body. However, it's temporary. It's not who I really am. So in that way, I've got to somehow transcend that. Get out of my head, all of its attachments, all of its desires, and then I've got to somehow get from that little corked bottle that's bobbing in the water, open the cork, get out, and become the water, the ocean again. This is the analogy that they use. This is extremely difficult to do. the mind will talk you out of it. It'll pull you back into life. It'll say, hey, come out and do this and, you know, drink a lot, or whatever you do, all these things that happen. The mind will pull you back over and over again. When you think you're growing spiritually, it'll even trick you into things like you become proud of your progress, or you begin to feel like you're becoming spiritually more enlightened than your friends, for example. Again, these are tricks of the ego. And people get stuck on these ways, or countless ways out, as Yogananda said. He also used a reference to dense undergrowth. It's thick in there. I speak for myself and for many other people. It's thick in there of all these thoughts and reactions and attachments, okay? So in this way, this delusion, we need the help of someone else to get out. Someone that can see that at a very high level and know what's needed, know what lessons to overcome so you can work towards it. We may not get to the end goal, that's not guaranteed, but the guru is there for you and will help you progress as much as you can in this lifetime. Okay? So this is not something to be feared. The other thing that people get mixed up on is there's a tendency to think if we just follow our senses, the senses crave stuff all the time in this world, that we are somehow free. I am free to eat unlimited pizza as much as I want on Friday night, or have as many beers as I want on this kind of thing. But we know that when it comes to addiction and habit, we begin to, and we step back, we realize in ourselves that we're not truly free. Okay, I'll say that again, it's important. When we're caught in these habits, and we're doing things over and over, I want to eat pizza, I want to have ice cream, I want to have a beer, all these things that we do, we're led by the senses, and we're not truly free. So often the guru will come and say, okay, I want you to meditate every day, I want you to stop drinking alcohol, for example, stop smoking, these things, try to be kind, and then you work on your anger. This is what they're going to tell you, okay? These are things which, hopefully, if you've done some soul searching, are kind of, maybe not obvious, but you can see that there's a benefit to them, okay? And this is one way that we can work with the guru and realize that we're not just having our freedoms curtailed, but these aren't truly freedoms. We're actually in bondage. So we give that bondage up so that we can discipline ourselves and make this goal to purify ourselves, okay? That's not for the faint of heart, okay? That's just something to think about. It's not for the faint of heart. We've got to make this commitment to do it. The other part of the guru relationship also is often then devotees will try to serve in the work of the guru. So there tends to be a lot of volunteer work and a lot of service. So you'll often see people running around, you know, digging up things, building things, washing dishes, serving food, all this kind of stuff, and it's all done in service to the guru. This is also done to break down the ego, so that way that you can serve truly. You're serving God through the guru. You're serving other devotees. This is the kind of things that they're going to ask you. Now I have just another little story here for you guys. Someone challenged Yogananda, saying, if you take a guru and you're forced to obey him, are you forced to obey him like a robot? And he responded, by no means. Any guru who demanded mindless obedience of the disciples would attract mindless disciples. It takes great vigor and strength of character to find God. Could the shock of spiritual omnipresence be sustained by spiritual weaklings? That's some pretty strong words, right? So we need to have strength in ourselves. We don't just put out our eyes of reason, we also then are listening to what they're saying, begin to see the benefits, questioning in many ways, but we're also then taking what they say, this is what we have to do in our path. The guru will simply say, okay, if you don't want to do it, you're free to go. You know, there's no, you're not kept there as a slave or anything, okay? It takes strength of character to find God. If you're going to discipline yourself, meditate daily, overcome weaknesses, not just food things, but all these mental habits that we have, not everyone can do that. I've been trying for years, it's hard. And then you fall off the wagon, you get back up. This is how it goes, right? We've got to really try. And then the shock of spiritual omnipresence. In the same way when we die and we drop the body, we reach this high state. It's something quite vast. So we need to be strong in ourselves. We need to be determined to do it in ourselves. We need to have a real strength of character, okay, to make this happen. So, in this way, with the guru, we can make this journey. It's not meant to be severe and austere. Many people fall into this trap. I myself have in the past. It's something that's done joyfully. You sing and chant bhajans, which are these spiritual songs, often with about the Guru. You sing and chant, you connect in more and more like this. It's something uplifting. When you overcome these bad habits, and mental habits too, it feels good. And you realize you're growing. And more this in the path. It's something very, very wonderful. So I don't want to give the impression that it's all austerity. There's a joyful side to it as well. Last point here is the Guru as an energetic ray and that magnet I talked about. So we have to tune in to the Guru. We have to tune in to them. So you have a picture on your altar, you look at their eyes, and then you try to create this magnetic attraction to the Guru. You pray deeply, praying to the Guru, and in that way, that ray of light I talked about earlier comes to you. And then from there, you're on the path, so to speak, but you increase this, what we call attunement, more and more as this happens. So there's something very energetic about it, and there's something very devotional about it, and of course, there's something very disciplining about it, okay? So this is what we have to think about, and I encourage all of you to really, at some point in your life, for those that are serious about these teachings, to really think about following a guru at some point. So I'd like to share with you just a little experience of the first Indian guru or holy man that came to the West, to America in particular. And his name was Swami Vivekananda. And Swami Vivekananda was a young man, I believe the late 20s, 1893, he came to Chicago. And there was kind of like a religious conference there, and he was invited to speak at this. Now, leading up to this, in the late 1800s, yoga had begun to permeate the West somewhat. And several famous writers, Emerson and Thoreau being two most notable, began to express an interest in yoga, and particularly Bhagavad Gita. And I believe it was Thoreau who was the first person of America to call himself a yogi. And I am a yogi, I think he had stated after quoting the Bhagavad Gita, which is pretty amazing. And in that time there was correspondence going back and forth between these teachings. Of course then you have British colonial times, and you have British scholars and people like Max Muller and things like this who were translating these Vedic texts. The British of course had assumed that the Indians were primitives, but at some point in the 1800s it began to dawn on them that what was coming through was highly sophisticated and advanced, spiritually, philosophically, and the rest. But it takes this point, 1893, in Chicago, if you can imagine, that this slightly short Indian monk, Swami Vivekananda, and he comes over and he speaks. He came over to the West and he stayed for a few years, and he began to establish some centers of Vedic teaching. And his guru was a famous man called Ramakrishna Paramahansa. And Ramakrishna Paramahansa was a great guru. You can read about him as well. There's actually a book called The Gospel of Ramakrishna, and you can read about his teachings. And he was a tremendous guru. So this is again people you can tap into historically, but because the guru is omnipresent, and because the guru, even outside their physical body, still can send a divine ray through their disciples, through Swami Vivekananda, and then people that have given that lineage, that touch physically from one generation to the other. Okay, this is important. So when we speak about lineage, lineage is a direct touch from guru to disciple and onwards through that, okay, by those that are deemed to have reached a higher state of consciousness. So this is how you connect to a lineage, truly speaking. So Vivekananda comes to the conference, and he's never spoken anything like this before. So as the conference begins, and various people come up to speak in this large auditorium in Chicago, when he's asked to speak, he declines. So, you know, one day goes on, 2 days go on, and they're getting towards the end of the conference. And eventually now they turn to him and they say, Swami, you really have to speak now. So he gets up and he speaks. And everyone's been waiting and anticipating his speech. Now again, these teachings have permeated, especially intellectual, at this point. And the most amazing thing happened. when Swami Vivekananda speaks, he begins with this line. He has this powerful, booming voice. And he stands up to this packed auditorium and he says, "Brothers and sisters of America." And without saying anything else, he gets a standing ovation and everyone cheers. And they say that his energy was such and this effect on people that it just touched them. And then he began to deliver this speech. So I'd like you to listen to just a few moments. Thank goodness for YouTube and the internet. We can now hear a few words of him speaking. So we'll listen to it now.
Sisters and brothers of America, it fills my heart with joy unspeakable to rise in response to the warm and cordial welcome which you have given us. I thank you in the name of the most ancient order of monks in the world. I thank you in the name of the mother of religions. And I thank you in the name of the millions and millions of Hindu people of all classes and sects. My thanks also to some of the speakers on this platform who, referring to the delegates from the Orient, have told you that these men from far-off nations may well claim the honor of bearing to different lands the idea of toleration. I am proud to belong to a religion which has taught the world both tolerance and universal acceptance. We believe not only in universal toleration, but we accept all religions as true. I am proud to belong to a nation which has sheltered the persecuted and the refugees of all religions and all nations of the earth. I am proud to tell you that we have gathered in our bosom the purest remnant of the Israelites who came to southern India and took refuge with us in the very year in which their holy temple was shattered to pieces by Roman tyranny. I am proud to belong to the religion which has sheltered and is still fostering the remnant of the grand Zoroastrian nation. I will quote to you, brethren, a few lines from a hymn which I remember to have repeated from my earliest boyhood, which is every day repeated by millions of human beings. As the different streams, having their sources in different places, all mingle their water in the sea, so, O Lord, the different paths which men take through different tendencies, various though they appear, crooked or straight, all lead to thee.
So I hope you enjoyed. Wasn't that amazing? His voice is something else. You can just listen to it and feel energy and vibration through those words. So I encourage, as people who are studying these teachings more and more, to go and research. There are several books that he wrote about Bhakti Yoga, Raja Yoga, Karma Yoga. You can go and search titles by Swami Vivekananda. You can also look up Ramakrishna, and again, beautiful, beautiful quotes. Those of you that want to teach yoga, this is a great way to get quotes from these spiritual masters and bring this into yoga class. Next, I want to talk about Paramahansa Yogananda. This is something very dear and personal to me as I follow the teachings and take Yogananda as my guru. So this is something I share with most enthusiastically with you all. Yogananda wrote the famous spiritual book, Autobiography of a Yogi. So this book is, I would consider, for those seeking in the yoga path, a must read. So I highly recommend it. So this book is something that has touched the lives of millions of people. Even if you don't take Yogananda as a guru or follow his teachings or anything else, it really is a gateway for those trying to find their path. And when we use the word path here, if you remember, I'm using it as the guru as a path. The guru gives you a path to walk to the mountaintop. Okay, so this is Yogananda. So Yogananda, he was a young boy and began to search for his guru from a very early age. So even through his high school years, his low teens, he's running away from home, this kind of thing, trying to find his guru. And eventually he does, kind of at the sort of end of high school time. So this all happens at an early point of his life. At that point then, he gets trained by his guru and trained eventually to bring yoga teachings to the West. And he was the first real guru to live and establish centers and ashram in America. He moved here in 1920. Again, he was invited to a kind of religious conference. and he spoke there and then dedicated the rest of his life in America. So he has not just ashram and meditation gardens, beautiful places you can visit and learn about these teachings, but he then had several senior disciples, direct disciples, who he trained and who reached very high states of consciousness also. So this is someone you can really tap into. In that same way we mentioned lineage before, that touch from those direct disciples to other fully trained people, then the lineage can continue, even though he's not in the body. This is important to understand. Even by not being in the body, there is still a lineage, you can still have that divine connection. Okay? I'd like to read to you just a few words from Autobiography of a Yogi, and in particular his meeting with his guru. He is meditating, he is sobbing actually, because he's just desperate. He's staying in a hermitage with other monks and he's kind of miserable there. And he gets this reply in his meditation, "Your guru shall come today." So, wiping away his tears, he hears some people calling him and they tell him to go to the market to buy some supplies. So he jumps out, goes to the market, and he's walking through this. And I want you to also listen to the first words they exchange once he finds them. Okay? "A sage-like man in the ochre robes of a Swami stood motionless at the end of the road. Instantly and anciently familiar he seemed. My gaze fed hungrily for a trice. Then doubt assailed me. You are confusing this wandering monk with someone known to you, I thought. Dreamer, walk on. After 10 minutes, I felt a heavy numbness in my feet. As though turned to stone, they were unable to carry me further. Laboriously, I turned around. My feet regained normalcy. I faced the opposite direction, and the curious weight oppressed me." So you remember that magnetism we talked about, the magnetic energy? This is an extreme example of that, okay? "This saint is magnetically drawing me to him. With this thought, I let go what I was carrying and ran towards him." Okay? So he retraces his steps. He goes back to the alleyway where he saw this man. And then he drops to his knees and he says, "Guru Deva." Okay? Guru Deva is the title given to this divine guru. "The divine face was none other than he of my 1,000 visions. These eyes, the leonine head, the lion-like head with pointed beard and flowing locks, had often peered through the gloom of my nocturnal reveries, holding a promise I had not fully understood." And his guru addresses him, "O my own, you have come to me. How many years I have waited for you." And he says it over and over again. Okay? And then he says, they held a gaze for a while, and his guru says to him, "I give you my unconditional love." That's what the guru says to him. "Will you give me the same unconditional love?" And then Yogananda as a boy replies, "I will love you eternally, Guru Deva." And he goes on to explain, ordinary love is selfish, rooted in desires and satisfactions. Divine love is without condition, without boundary, without change. Okay? So, instantly they asked, "Will you love me?" Isn't that interesting? Now I don't want to read too much of the passages here, but there's later when they speak to each other, he asks, "Allow me to discipline you." That's what the guru asks of Yogananda. "Allow me to discipline you." And then at that point Yogananda as a boy bows down and says, "Yes, I allow you to take charge of my life and my spiritual growth." Now that's very, very intense. These were highly evolved people. So this is something that you may not be asked directly to do these days when you do meet a guru that's living, but this is the level of commitment involved. Okay? So again, not to frighten anyone with these things, more than likely what you'll be asked is to follow the teachings, to get up early to practice, to give up the bad habits, and then things we might not notice about ourselves, the guru will point out. You have a tendency for pride or jealousy, and they'll just root it all out of you. This is the kind of things that they're saying. Okay? And this is the relationship that we have. He also mentions, "I will love you eternally." Once that bond is there, from guru to disciple, it goes not just this lifetime, but into the future lifetimes. And like a magnet is drawn back over again until this task is complete until we are, to use the Christian term, saved. So for those interested in Yogananda's teachings, if they're drawn to that, first of all, reading the autobiography of a yogi is the way to go. He also wrote a lot of other works. There are commentaries on Bhagavad Gita and on the Christian Bible. A big part of the teachings of Yogananda and his own guru was to show an underlying reconciliation, an underlying unity between Christ's teaching and Krishna teaching of Bhagavad Gita. So they write lots of commentaries, and it's a fascinating way to rethink the Christian tradition from how we've been taught it. So I encourage you to have a look at that. For those that want to go even further, there are various ashrams and kind of churches that they have through the group that he founded called the Self-Realization Fellowship. And there's also another group called Ananda that I'm personally part of. And both of these, they give teachings and techniques that Yogananda specifically brought. So you can dive into this stuff. He also composed many, many chants, some in English as well. So you can learn chants, you can build devotion through this path that he offers. If nothing else, I encourage you to read this book, Autobiography of a Yogi, and really take it into your heart. And from there, it'll spur you on to the next step of your spiritual journey. So the next thing we're going to talk about is the guru-disciple relationship. Throughout history of India and back to Vedic times, the most important relationship that one can have in their life is with their guru. It is like a divine friendship, one that transcends this lifetime and goes to multiple lifetimes until a devotee is saved and finally reaches that oneness with God. So this is something to be very much revered in yourself. There is a famous saying, when the disciple is ready, the guru will appear. This is crucial because we can wish and wish for the right guru to come and to find this path. But when you are truly ready in yourself, and you've asked inwardly through prayer and through your meditation, then it will come to you. I've never known anyone that didn't find their guru who really sought out. So let's say for a moment that you have found your guru. What typically happens next for the devotee? Now that you have a devotion for God and guru, then you're going to become a devotee. So usually at this point, there's some kind of initiation. Okay? And the initiation is the sacred connection between the guru and the disciple. Okay? So usually in this way, it could be formal or informal. It really depends on the guru. Often they'll do things very much in the present moment, so it's hard to know what's going to happen with them. But for many of them, there will be some sort of sacred ceremony where you become a disciple. And you may take some kind of pledge or vow in this way to follow their teachings, to do as they say, that kind of thing. This is something quite serious. But you would take that kind of pledge to become a disciple and just stick to this path. Many people today in the West are jumping from one teacher to the next, to the next, to the next. Now that's fine for your average Hatha Yoga class, but I'm talking about a spiritual path. And they might have like 4 different gurus on their altar or something like this. We're sticking to this one path. So you take this vow, and at that point there will be some kind of touch that's a transmission, usually to the heart or to the third eye or something like this. And this is then, you are then initiated as a disciple of a guru. Okay, so initiation is important because that's where the initial transmission comes. It's almost like then you become an antenna to that divine ray, and it's easier to tune into more and more. Okay, so typically from there, it's like any other practice. You're then meditating, doing the specific techniques that the guru may have. They may have their own way of doing things, and you will follow that. And then at some point in meditation, it's really important then to meditate on the guru's image. This is why people have pictures of gurus on their altar. Okay? So you have the guru on the altar, particularly the eyes. You know, the eyes are the window to the soul, they say. Well, the eyes, for this purpose, this is where the ray is transmitted. So these gurus' images are transmitting and vibrating out to your sacred space. By looking into the picture, then, it gets you in tune with that. When you close your eyes in meditation, you focus at the third eye, and you try to visualize the guru. And then you may ask inwardly as well through prayer and other techniques to really get into connection and tune into the guru. So this is a very practical way to do things. Then from there you may receive inner guidance. This is quite common, and it may sound strange and otherworldly, but it's quite common to find guidance in your life. And then there's a sweet part to all of that, and then the not so sweet part is often karmic things will come up to help you overcome these lessons. So the universe is something alive, this divine mother we call it in the yoga tradition, and all of this karma is out there. But these masters can tap into that, and they may nudge the karma in some direction so you learn a lesson. I was shocked over the years to find me study certain teaching and then to find some, particular test come up or challenge which embodied the teaching almost completely. And it was, they say karma burns, it's hard going through these things. So this is the other part as well, that karmic things may come up. Again, so you can learn lessons. You want to learn patience, for example, you may be given this. And then the guru may just start speaking about patience, and you've just been working on it for the last 2 months. This is how things can manifest. It's different in every situation. We never quite know how it's going to be. But this is what you want to think about in this relationship. Of course, we talked about acceptance in this kind of way, studying the teachings, all of these kind of things. And then trying, especially if the guru is living, of course, or if not in the body, being with direct disciples, trying to have some time in your year where you are in close contact with these people who are deeply in tune, or the guru themselves. The guru is like a magnet and is a very powerful being, and you'll feel that presence, and you'll feel it very clearly spiritually when you're close to them. So when you go to be in their physical presence, at times I felt it almost intoxicating. And in that point then you go into deep states of meditation, you're feeling that energy, you're being picked up by it. This is the sort of things that people are doing. So this is how we become a disciple. And remember also, you're not giving away your freedom. This is something I want to re-emphasize. There is a bondage as we are giving into all our senses and desires and all our attachments and little stories that we have. And we're essentially giving them up to the guru. That's important to emphasize. So with the guru, remember, it's an inner relationship. Yes, you can talk to them in person, that's good too, but don't let that deceive you. The physical body is just somewhere they're animating for a short while. Think of them as something much greater, something omnipresent really. And in that way, you can then understand that inwardly through intuition is how you pick up on their teachings, much more so than the words or the books that they write. The words and books are good too, of course, but it's the inner guidance that's the real gems that you want. So the question often comes up for people is, I'm ready for a guru. I've been studying these teachings, I'm spiritually devoted, I want to do something. Where can I go to find a guru? This is a question that I hear a lot. And I think there's something to be said for going out there and looking and, searching out these different teachers. So I say this with a slight smile on my face because there's this thing called the internet. And you can go online and search up gurus from India, spiritual teachers from India, search these kind of things. And there are many of them really if you stop and think about it, but it's a small group of people on the planet. But there are several that are quite well known today, and you can kind of learn about their teachings and look at them and then try to discern in yourself whether you are attracted or drawn to the teachings. And you'd be surprised when you go in a little bit how when that does happen, it's quite clear. Other times we feel a kind of blockage with these people or something seems off and then we go there. Don't just rely on the internet. Ultimately, you have to go and see them in person. And when you see them in person, that's when you truly know if you're ready to become a disciple or not. But we can at least start down the process, okay? Now I want to talk about one particular modern day guru who's very famous in many circles across the world, and she is called Amma, or Ammachi, sometimes she's referred to. Amma simply means mother. There are actually many Ammas that are out there, but Amma the hugging saint is who I'm talking about. And she goes around the world and has done for decades now, and she hugs people. Now, when you have the sight of a guru or an enlightened being and have any contact with them, it is called darshan. It's a beautiful word, and darshan means to have a divine vision. So in this darshan, she hugs you. So imagine the Divine Mother of the whole universe, the Cosmic Mother, coming in and giving you a hug, and then she blesses you. It's really a wonderful experience. She goes all over the world, and many people will be living in Austin who are watching this video, and she comes to Dallas, but many major US cities, she's coming there, and you can go to see her. Once you have that hug, it's a great blessing for your life. So there's a saying in the Yoga Sutras that if you get the blessing of a saint, that it will carry you across, like a raft, carry across the delusion of life, as if being carried in a raft. This is what they say. So it's a great way to uplift your consciousness by being in the presence of a saint. So I encourage you to, look at these people. So every guru has a different way about them, a different emphasis. Some are much more intellectual in terms of their reflecting on reality. Some are much more service-based, serving the poor. Some are much more bhakti-based or devotional-based in that they are all about chanting. Some are more meditation-based, that kind of thing. So each guru has a different emphasis. We talk also about the paths of yoga. A little bit outside the subject of this video, but these paths of yoga are reflected in the gurus. And the different type of person will naturally gravitate to them. So Amma is all about service to humanity and to the poor and the suffering. And through the devotion, this gives us the energy to do this great work in the world. So devotion and service together is her path. Whereas Yogananda was devotion and meditation. It was much more that basis. So they have a different emphasis. And through that, that will gel with your natural tendency. When you, as I say, when you meet these people, then it's quite captivating. And you can be enamored and then jump into doing all this kind of service. Okay? Amma has hugged, I think it's something like 35 million people across the world. It's a huge number of people. And she has ashrams in America and India and perhaps other places too. Okay? So to get experience of darshan and what it's like to be in Amma's presence, I'd like you to watch this short minute clip that we have, and you can really see and experience what it's like to have Amma's darshan. So wasn't that wonderful to see her and all those people? It is tremendous, and you see the attraction there that comes. So this is Amma. There are other gurus out there. We don't have time in this video to talk about them all. But I encourage you as a seeker, it's a spiritual process. So use spiritual techniques to help you find the guru. Pray, meditate, contemplate, ask deeply in yourself, and then from there this opens up the universe. Whether it's a book like Autobiography of a Yogi dropping onto your lap, or someone hands you something, or a friend says, hey, come and see this spiritual teacher that's coming to town, something like this. This will how you'll move on the path. If you show God or the universe I tend to think of as the Divine Mother, the feminine aspect of a divine. If you show the universe and the divine that you truly are interested, it's like a flow of energy comes to you. There is a saying, if you take one step to the divine will take 1,000 steps towards you. Think about that. We're not just on our own. these great saints, the angelic beings, everything in the world, they want you to progress. They want you to find this path. So the universe will work for you in this way. This is how grace really works. Okay? So I want to read a few words from Amma, and this is talking about the importance of a guru. We're also going to begin to connect this into finding a guru versus imposters or charlatans that are out there. It is quite unfortunate that there has been so much scandal with people who are essentially pretending to be gurus. And it's very difficult and alarming for the seekers. So we must have an element of this lecture be caution to all of us, okay? So this is Amma's words, and this will take a little bit of time. The gift of India to the world is her culture of self-realization, her vision of raising human beings to heights of God consciousness. Modern society, disillusioned with the empty grandeur of materialism, looks to the perennial philosophies of the East for guidance and refuge. From ancient times to present day, an unbroken succession of God-realized souls have taken birth in India to lead seekers of truth, truth with a capital T, to their goal. It is not surprising that some self-seeking individuals have put on a garb of enlightened masters to take advantage of the thirst for spiritual guidance. The West has suffered much from this deception and has developed paranoia towards gurus. Because of a few charlatans, we need not lose faith that genuine masters exist. Because some quacks are practicing medicine, do we cease to look for a reputable doctor to free us from illness? Why does one need a spiritual guide, you may ask? After reading a few books, can't I make my own way along the spiritual path? If one desires to become a doctor, one must study under the instruction of learned professors. Even after graduating from medical school, one interns in a hospital under the guidance of practicing doctors. We spend many years to fulfill our dream of becoming a doctor. What then of aspiring to realize the supreme truth? If we desire spiritual wisdom, we must seek our true spiritual masters who have studied, practiced, and experienced truth. What distinguishes a true teacher from an impostor? In the presence of an enlightened being, one feels a tangible aura of love and tranquility. We can observe the equal treatment that all receive regardless of status, fortune, religion, or race, from one immersed in divinity. Each word and action of a true master serves to awaken people spiritually. No trace of ego or selfishness exists in a Mahatma, a great soul, who with open arms receives and serves all. The true guru can be known by the intellect. Satguru, that true guru I mentioned, is beyond all logic and judgment, for the Satguru is an experience. The Satguru is not known by intellectual calisthenics, but is recognized spontaneously by those of pure heart. Recognition can only be of that which was once known, and the Satguru seems to be a new factor in our lives. So how is it one recognizes the Satguru? The Satguru is recognized, for the true teacher is none other than our own true self, our innate nature. The Guru is truly known only when a disciple, himself or herself, goes beyond the self-imposed limitations of individuality and merges with the self, which is none other than the Guru. Okay? That's some lofty teachings there. So, first of all, remember yoga means divine union. Union with God. That's its highest meaning. There are subsidiary meanings for the physical body and everything, but ultimately this is what it means. We're on this journey. Purification of the heart chakra is crucial for the seeker. Okay? Blessed are the pure of heart, for they shall see God. In this context, that quote is very, very relevant to the yogic seeker. Okay? So in that way, as you purify yourself and meditate more deeply, it's easier then to feel the connection with the Guru. The person who is skeptical, is rational, or just downright cynical is obviously, if they go to meet these people, is not going to like them. The chances are much, much more limited. It can happen, of course, and it does sometimes. But if you purify yourself, it makes a difference. Next, we must understand, when you're in the presence of these people, they are truly peaceful. If you remember the teachings of ahimsa, non-harming, when one is established in ahimsa, all hostilities cease. You can feel the peaceful aura, the loving aura all around them. It's something quite tangible. And when you do feel it for the first time, it throws you off a little bit. It's like, wow, can this be real? So this is something quite pure. The other thing I want you to think about is the look in the eyes. So for the average person like myself, then the eyes tend to flicker, and they tend to, when a reaction happens mentally, the eyes will have a little tremor in them. So the depth of the Guru's eyes are something quite clear and piercing, and they tend not to have that kind of tremor. So you can kind of begin to sense if someone isn't quite at that high state of consciousness. Okay? And also too is that person will be able to speak to you at a soul level. So again, there are psychic people out there, they're obviously not gurus, that could say things, that could take advantage of things, right? So we have to be clear in that message. So again, look for these signs, go inside, see if it's the right path for you. And the status thing that Amma mentioned is important. If you see some of these teachers, then, always surrounded by rich people, for example, and receiving these huge gifts, or they're giving out special yoga techniques or mantras for $10,000, gurus don't do this, okay? And if someone says to you, give me $10,000 and I will transmit Shakti to you so you can have Samadhi, I'd say run a mile. Run a mile, because not only do you waste your money, but you'll also get hurt emotionally. So this is something to be very aware of. It's very bad karma for these individuals to do these kind of things, okay? And then if there's anything that seems like people are being taken advantage in servitude, or anything that's improper conduct, again, these gurus will never ever do it. Turn your back, get your things, get the heck out of there, okay? This is crucial that we do. These people are loving and benevolent and kind. It is true that from the wider audience, in their direct disciples, they can be very strict, and sometimes will give a roasting to their direct disciples as a way to purify and overcome their ego. This does happen. So we have to look at all of this in context. If at any time there is sexual misconduct or physical advancement by one of these people who claims to be a guru, please, 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 tell them no, get your things, leave, and get out of there, and don't ever come back, because a true guru, an enlightened being, would never ever do that. Often people fall into traps in these situations, and they think, well, it's my guru, they have to be right, this is okay. This is not. So please, don't ever get involved with these things. Leave and never come back, and then you can find a true guru. So I just have one more quote for you here about this subject, because it's so, so important. Do true gurus try to draw people to themselves or to the divine? It's the question that's been asked. If they are trying to draw people to the divine, then you are in the right hands. If they are trying to draw people to themselves, then they will weaken you rather than strengthen you. You can recognize true saints by signs of one who has mastered themselves. The presence of compassion, calmness, wisdom, joy, and under all circumstances, devotion to God and selflessness, to mention but a few. Okay? So a couple of things that are really, really important here. These people generally are blissful and joyful, happy people. Okay? That's a clue, first of all. And if you're in a place and there seems to be so much emphasis on more people, build more ashrams, this kind of thing, this is also another clue that sometimes there seems to be almost an obsession with building greater and greater movements. Again, money is another weakness. Okay? And you will know when you're on the wrong track, when you will feel weakened by the whole experience rather than strengthened. This has happened to me personally, and it's not fun. But you do learn a tremendous amount in the process, but it's really not fun. In that way, you'll start to feel a contraction of energy. You'll start to feel that you're losing energy. You see it's been sucked out of me. This is the kind of thing that will happen. So again, when you're in this presence, doing these practices, you'll feel uplifted, you'll feel joyful in yourself. So look at the positive states of consciousness versus negative. Also look around to people very close to the inner circle. And if they're arguing and bickering, I've seen devotees at each other's throats, this is not a good sign, okay? We want to think about these things. In the human drama, there'll always be tension in these groups. It's just the way they're organized. So you're never going to find a utopian group, I'm afraid. But the level of that, and the closer you get to inner circle, is kind of look at these people and see what's going on. So yes, use this discernment, use common sense always. So this begs the question, why is this happening? Because some people seem to be very eloquent, they maybe even possess spiritual power in that you do feel kind of intoxicated around them. This does happen too. So when people are sincere seekers, there is a level whereby they can go into samadhi and have God contact, but they go back to the ego. If you remember from Yoga Sutra study, in samadhi there are two essential types, sabhikalpa and nirvikalpa samadhi. The first is a conditioned samadhi. You're in meditation, it's a very serene place, you're at the feet of the Guru, you go into this state of oneness and you can experience it. However, it has to be done under strict control. At that point then, you come out of samadhi. From there, as one progresses more and more, you hope then that you have unconditioned samadhi. Not only can you get into it any time you choose, you can do it in waking life as well. And a true master will be in this state of consciousness throughout. As a funny side note, Yogananda had said it was as hard for him to be in a physical body as it was for us to get into samadhi. So they're in such this wide state that they have to anchor themselves in the body just enough so that they can animate the body and talk to us. So this is quite amazing stuff. So because of this, some people have an experience and then come back and can speak to that experience. They're also to build a huge amount of prana that they can then share. And there are situations of more corrupt type of people who are almost intoxicating with energy they're sending out. So these things can happen. Not to scare you, but there is a way whereby you can think, well, this person seems eloquent, they seem to have energy, they seem to be really happy and joyful, they must be a right guru, and I must give them $10,000 for the new ashram. And so, no you don't. Okay? You don't have to give them that. So this is one way to look at it. Okay? And eventually over time you'll reach this. But know that the Sat Guru is, the term they are saying is sharing that it is a true guru. That is what the disciples are saying. So I want to close this lecture by just a couple of thoughts and quotes from some pretty amazing people. First of all, from Patanjali, the sage that wrote the Yoga Sutras. Sutra 137. Oneness with God, that is samadhi, can be attained by attunement with the mind of an enlightened one who is completely free from all attachment to the senses. Okay? So this is one way to get into samadhi. Focusing and meditating on that gaze, on those eyes, singing and chanting to the Guru, to God, in this way, and then again you have a hint of the quality of that person, the Guru. They're free from attachment to the senses, okay? To attachment, to desire for things, they're completely in the moment, okay? And then another very famous Guru from India, Anandamoyi Ma, she stated, it may be asked why there cannot be one and the same path for all, because He, as in God, reveals Himself in infinite ways and forms. Verily, the One is all of them. So again, important teaching. There are many paths to the mountaintop. Each Guru represents a different path. We must choose the path that goes up. God is one, names and forms are many. Okay? So the different Gurus have different traits, qualities, emphasis, and then our temperament will naturally gravitate to one of them. So a temperament of serving through action, through devotion, or through deep thinking. This is the typical ways of the paths of yoga. So we can connect to that through the Guru. We must remember that just because there is a path and it's negative does not mean we'll get to the mountaintop. There are some paths that go in circles, there are some paths that go downhill. So we have to look at this, use our discernment and judgment as we go through this. So again, you have to be strong of mind as you do these things. Okay? And then from Swami Kriyananda, who writes, you are not trying to be like the Guru. A true Guru develops your own divine power. So you can be set free, and in that free expression, you can be in the world. The Guru is your divine friend forever. The Guru is simply a channel for divine power and wisdom that is always uplifting to a disciple. Okay? So again, you have that ray, that power, that channel that comes to uplift us, always. I want to finish kind of where I started. That 3 blessings. To have a human birth, to have a desire to know God, and to find your guru. These are the three greatest blessings in life. Okay? So don't be scared of these things. When you feel ready and called to do so, go out there, explore it. And for those that are yoga teachers, then also give comfort and learn these lessons for other people who are searching. And in doing so, you will have an uplifted, joyful experience in your life. Your meditations will be better, and you'll be able to have a closer personal relationship with God, because the Guru is God, is a reflection of God, like a window that you can look towards, and that ray of light comes through the window to you. So I would say, go out, explore, dip your toe in the water, jump in at some point, and know you can come back out if need be. But beware also of the mind. The mind will look for the nearest exit. It'll look for ways out. It'll look for cynicism. So in that, you have to meditate deeply and trust your intuition, and know that to fully purify yourself takes great commitment. But every saint that reached Samadhi has said that all of the stuff he had to go through to get there, it was worth it. It was worth it. Thank you all for watching. Namaste.